Good evening, everyone. Come on in, come on in. Let's talk transition. Good evening. Come on in. Evening, everyone. Oh, that's an echo because I started it on my phone and it's a little bit of a delay. I'm going to give you guys a couple of seconds to start your watch parties, invite someone. Don't forget when you do the share that you can actually share to people individually in Messenger. So that's great if you know that someone is going to need this topic. Tonight, we're going to talk about going beyond breast cancer. I'm Danielle Butler, and I'm excited to be your guest host for this evening for talking about beyond breast cancer. For those of you that are new, this is Let's Talk Transition with Sonya T, the transition coach. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for coming back. We're excited to see you for another week. Last week we took off because it was fall break where we are. So hopefully you had an opportunity to get caught up on all of the episodes that you've missed. If not, it's never too late. They're on YouTube as well as here on Facebook. So I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds and then we'll get started, all right? Because I need to share it from my end as well. I need to make sure that I've got some peoples in here.
Yes, we need some peoples.
We need some peoples in here. So I'm gonna figure this thing out. I'm doing it from my phone today, which usually, hey, Pastor Carla, welcome in. Thank you so much.
Hey, Pastor Carla, how are you? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh my goodness. Listen, I don't know what I'm doing on sharing this, guys. It's maybe it's because I'm in here listen, it's happening. It's live. All right. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this work. It's been that kind of day for me. It's definitely been a full day of transition. So I cannot even begin to explain it. But hopefully everyone that's joining us now is having a great day. Please make sure that you give StreamYard access to your Facebook so that we have an opportunity to see your comments as well. We would appreciate it if you are here live. Just give us a quick hello or hey, I'm here live. And for those of you that are catching the replay, if you just drop in and say hashtag replay, because we want to know who's catching up with us later after the show. So come on in, invite your friends. I can't tell how many of us are in here, but I'm going to kick this thing off like it's a billion of us. All right.
All right. Hey, Christina. Hey, Pam. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so it looks like there are people here and I just can't see them. So maybe that's a good thing tonight. No distractions for me, right? No distractions. We are distraction free. All right. Hey there, Minister Willie. It's so exciting to see you. Your lovely face. Thank you for joining us tonight. Yeah, this is good. This is going to be good, guys. So as you know, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, among many other months, right? This is Infant and Toddler Loss Month. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is also known as Teen-tober in the reading space for teens and getting them involved in reading and continuing the great habit of reading. I feel like it's a couple of other holidays, like months that there's a ribbon for whatever. We had a mental health awareness this past Saturday. So there's a ribbon, right? Today, we're going to talk about the pink ribbon, which is breast cancer. And I am elated to be taking over today, honestly, right?
Hey, Cousin Curtis.
I get to interview one of the most amazing people in my world, and after tonight, probably in your world too. I say that I'm going to start this. We're going to have this conversation. I'm going to be professional about it, okay? I'm not going to shed any tears, even if I feel like it. I'm just going to make it do what it do, okay? If for some reason you hear my kids in the background, just ignore them. If I'm still looking like this, you still look like this, okay? We've had interruptions before. This is what we do. Let's talk transition. So I would like to start by thanking you, Sonya, for being here this evening for your show. Thank you for the opportunity. We may have another guest pop in and join us a little bit as the show goes on, but I do want to be respectful of your time and just dive in. First of all, how are you doing? It is a pandemic. A lot of us are on roller coasters with the world opening back up. Maybe it's not, maybe it is. So tell me, how are you doing?
Girl, let me tell you, as the old people say, I'm yet holding on, baby.
Yes, as long as God is willing and the creek
I
goes
am.
on.
Yeah, I am. I was driving to work this morning, and I was saying to myself, God, I am so thankful for just where you have me. I am thankful. Hey, we're gonna let our other person join.
Okay, awesome.
Hello, Ladybug.
Hi.
Hello,
Hey,
hello.
hey, Latricia, and hey, Karen Smith, and Sharon James, and all of y'all. Hi, my cousins. But let me tell you, I am just so thankful for just being healthy. I
Yeah.
still have a job. I got a place to stay. Girl, I got food. Girl, I hate to say this, but I ain't lost no weight. So
Me either. Me either. Here's my truth. I have been working out this week. Praise God. I started another workout program. I've been working out with cans of corn this week as my little weights. Hello, Benet. Welcome.
Hey.
We're excited to see you. All right, so I'm going to have you scoot over a little bit the opposite direction so I can see you a little. Yes, because it's weird that way. Yeah, it's mirrored on here. So I'm just checking in and seeing how you are doing in this pandemic. How are you? Before we dive into anything else, how are you doing?
Wow. I'm doing okay. It was a little bit complicated for me because my mother has Alzheimer's. So me being an essential worker, it was kind of difficult. We were furloughed initially, but then when we went back to work, I felt like I had to choose because going to be around them, it was just like, because I was seeing patients. And I was like, oh my goodness. So it was pretty stressful for me, kind of caused a bit of anxiety. But yeah, but I made a decision that I thought was the best for me. And so that my sister and I can split care of my parents. Yeah. So,
yeah.
but other than that, it's been great. The kids are getting along fine. Kelsey's absolutely loving virtual learning. She is absolutely loving it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, and Kyle, he went back to school and he's enjoying it, staying safe. I was a little worried about him going back to school, but it's working out fine. So, and y'all know the preacher's fine.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I wanted to make sure that we started off on a really good space, right? Making sure that everybody is well before we dive into this conversation, where we talk really about the other side of breast cancer. I want to talk about the start, the journey, and then what it looks like on the backside of the journey as well. So before I do that, listen, y'all. While we're talking about wellness, we're talking about healthcare. Get your mammograms, check your tatas, whatever you want to call them, because these chicks will try to kill you if you're not careful. Okay. But then also with that, also making sure that we vote, because your healthcare, our healthcare, my healthcare is the line. So it's important that we get people that understand us in office. It is important that we use our voices to make sure that we have the resources that we need for healthcare and having that access, among many other things. That is my political plug for this evening. Do your research, go to the polls. If you got your little mail-in ballot, take it and drop it off, praise God, unless you know your mail person and you know they're going to get it there for you.
Come on now.
We want to just be real specific in these days. So that is my PSA. But tonight we're talking about going beyond breast cancer. I want to start and ask both of you the same question. And that is, when did you get your diagnosis?
Who was going first? Go ahead, Benet.
Okay. So I was diagnosed in 2015, July 1st, as a matter of fact.
It's my birthday.
Is that your birthday? Oh,
All right.
you
Change
know I don't like that day.
June 30th.
Oh goodness. Yeah. So I was diagnosed then. So I went in on the 30th to have a mammogram and an ultrasound because I found a mass. And they called me on July 1st.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Sonya, what about you?
So my first diagnosis was in 2003. I think it was around November time, because that was when I usually got my mammograms. I always got my mammograms in November. So it was November 2003 the first time. The second time it was November 2008. So
Wow.
exactly 5 years later. And they say, if you go 5 years, you good.
Oh
And
yeah.
I thought I was good.
Yeah.
With that second time, I was like, oh, and you know what I said at the end. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
there are lots of words, colorful words that I could put at the end of that. Oh, but
Mhm.
we're not here to talk about me and those. We're here to talk about
that
y'all
was
and
probably some of the words. I was like, God, what you
Right.
doing?
that part. Yeah, all that. But that's not how I talk to God. Sometimes I use the colorful language. So both of you, so Benet, you said that you noticed a mass, right? And so you went in, and then Sonya, you were just going for your regular annual. Since this is Let's Talk Transition, this is a safe space. We want people to be able to ask their questions. I'm going to ask a question that may or may not be on some people's minds. Now we get the little pamphlets and they tell us how to check, right? You hold your arm up, you do this, blah, blah, blah. They give you the dates. They say do it around your cycle because you know that's going to come every month if you have one, or pick a specific day of the month to do that so that you are aware of changes. But for you, Benet, in finding and discovering that for yourself, what was it like? Was it just a normal, I'm just doing a home self-screening, or was it, this feels weird because I'm putting on my bra today and my boob looks weird in it?
No, it was just, touching those tatas because I try to make sure that that I check. And I definitely have never done it properly, but I
Mm-hmm.
do grab them. So, and and I immediately felt that knot, and I'm like, and it was kind of interesting because I was on my cycle, so I'm thinking, oh, okay, it's probably just that. How do you have just some pockets like sometimes around
Mm-hmm.
the cycle that just feel like that. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's probably what it is. And so because of that, I waited where
Wow.
normally I probably would have just gone ahead and called, but just because I'm like, yeah, it's probably just, like the fibroid type things, just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
because it's that time of the month.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't go away. It didn't
Mm.
go away, and it got to the point where I was able to go directly to it, directly to it.
Wow.
Meaning I didn't have to feel around; I could go directly to it. Um, yeah, I was going to tell one of my other hesitations, but I'll wait because we may
No,
get
tell the hesitation. Let's talk transition.
we may get well. Okay, so we had moved. We had relocated from North Carolina to South Carolina. And initially, when we got here, I commuted. I still commuted to North Carolina because I had been on my job like 9 years, the same company the whole time I'd been in North Carolina. And so I was just like, you know what? I just cannot keep driving back and forth, to North Carolina. But I was having the hardest time finding a job here. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So, um, it's just not as easy anymore where you just walk in and somebody hire you right on the spot. It's like it
Mm-hmm.
was just taking a long time. So I had given my notice, come off of my job, gone through my time of Cobra that was just like killing us.
Oh.
So for the first time, and I can't even remember when, I did not have health insurance.
Mm.
And so I was in a real panic. I was in a real panic to the point that I was like, I didn't even tell my husband that I felt the mask because I'm just like, what in the world? I got to work this out in my mind before I can even say anything. Because, you know, women, we got to fix it all. So I'm trying to figure out how to work this out. And I'm just like, okay. But one day my hand went to that mask and I was like, you know what? I have to find a way. I got to figure out something, you know, if I just have to go and pay out of pocket. And I started searching, you know, just looking online at everything. And I found this agency that was, when I tell you, a blessing in disguise, just a blessing in disguise. So I call, the lady gives me the information. She tells me exactly what to do. She sends over by email this form that I needed to fill out and everything. And she was like, you know what doctor you want to see? And I'm like, I don't even have one here yet. You know, I don't have a doctor here yet. She was like, well, you can pick, you know, whatever doctor. I just randomly picked somebody. But when I tell you that everything was orchestrated totally by God, totally by God, because the doctor I went to wasn't even in my area. It was like 30 minutes for me to drive to that doctor, but I went. She was amazing. She sent me right in for the mammogram, ultrasound. I went to that facility. All of this agency was paying for. So I went there to the facility. Had both the mammogram done. The doctor comes in. The technician has already done the ultrasound, and then the doctor comes in behind. And I could just tell by the whole energy in the room that, yeah, I just went right on and started crying right there on the table. I'm like, they don't have to say nothing. I already know. So, the technician that was helping me just happened to be, of course, a believer, because we had talked in the mammogram room. But of course, she was very limited on what she could say. And my behind went by myself. I just had nobody with me. And so when the doctor finished with the ultrasound, he was like, we probably need to do a biopsy, and I would like to do it today.
Wow.
So I'm just like, okay. So he walked out and she came over and she grabbed my hand and she said, would you like for me to call your husband now? And I said, please. So he came like right there. They did the biopsy. Everybody, like I said, it was just like it was orchestrated totally by God, because everybody was amazing. Every facility I went to, it was just fantastic. He let me know that he would give me an answer by noon the next day, and he was literally calling me like 11:59.
Wow.
And you know, and he was very direct, but you know, it wasn't abrupt. It was, you know, he took his time telling me, and really all I heard was cancer, and I didn't even hear the rest of what he said. I didn't hear anything else. I actually had to call back because I had just tapped out after he said that, because I'm thinking, and I think the hardest thing for me was, and my mom's a breast cancer survivor, but she had a lumpectomy, radiation, that was it. So my cancer had already started moving to my lymph node. So I already had positive lymph node, and I'm just like, I felt like I could see cancer just all over my body, you know. And like they're gonna find it everywhere. Because you really
I'm gonna pause you right there. I want to come back to that. Thank you for sharing that with such transparency, right? Going into that journey alone, right? But then realizing that you weren't there alone. There were people that were there that were assigned to you. For those of you that are watching and just joining, I'm Danielle Butler. I'm taking over Let's Talk Transition for the Beyond Breast Cancer edition. I would like to thank you for joining, encourage you to go ahead and still share this information that we are talking about. Is something that has the potential to change your life, as well as that of those that are connected to you. Breast cancer has been a thief of joy many times over, but what you have here tonight is three women of faith, two of which who have conquered breast cancer, looked it in the eye, stared it down, and not back down. So, with that, I'm going to ask you, Sonya, I'm going to bounce over to you. Tell me about your diagnosis story. You mentioned 2003 and 2008. So, that's two different times that you've had.
Mhm.
So, tell me a little bit about the first time and how it differed or was the same the second time.
So the first time, so first of all, I've always had lumpy breasts, and because my mom had breast cancer, every time I would get a fibroid lump, it had to be removed. So when I had this one, I figured it was, the exact same thing. So I went to the doctor, and he did the lump. I came back for the results. He said, "You know what? We took it out, but it's cancerous."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, let me tell you what I said. I said, "Oh shit."
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's nice you don't
Uh,
want to, but that's
I
good.
said, and then I began to say, God, I thought we were supposed to skip a generation. I thought, what's going on? My mom had it. I'm not supposed to have it. The next generation's supposed to have it. So he began to talk about, he began to talk. He said, well, get dressed and then you come on into my office. He was talking, but it was like, wow, 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 wow. I heard nothing the man said.
Yeah.
He said, well, you have precancerous cells, and if you do nothing, there is a 75% chance they can turn into cancer and spread and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking precancerous cells, it must be cousins to precancer. It's the same thing in my book. So even when he got in there and took that out, he said, well, I went back a couple of times. He said, I want you to know we found cancer and we got it. And I had to go again for a surgery because they didn't clear the margarines. So I had to have another surgery to go back in so that they can clear the margarines, which means they had to they were afraid that they left something in there. So I had to go back and have another surgery. So that was the first time that I had it. The second time, both of them were found by way of mammogram. So the second time he said it's in the same breast. So what ended up happening is I had to have a double mastectomy. I had always had large breasts, so I was kind of like, well, okay, I'm gonna take that because I wanted the breast reduction anyway. But I wasn't prepared. The first time I had radiation, it burned me. I had to stop for a while. I lost a lot of weight. The second time they couldn't radiate the same breast, or they can't radiate the same area, so I had to have chemo, which I wouldn't put that on my worst enemy.
We're gonna put a pin in that. We're gonna come back to the treatment. We're gonna come back to the treatment. Okay, so both of you ladies have mentioned something that I don't want to miss on tonight's conversation for those that are tuning in. And both of you said something that was very key. Benet, you said that you were touching on the tatas. That was just a regular thing. But then it was like, oh, well, my cycle's on. This could just be hormones, etc. Sonya, you said I had always had lumpy breast. And I was talking with a friend of mine not even 2 months ago who had been diagnosed with breast cancer a few years back. And one of the things that we talked about was, number one, that Black women of color, typically have denser tissue in their breasts than other nationalities, other cultures. And so oftentimes, if we don't know our bodies, if we don't know what to expect, the doctors just kind of, okay, like the mammogram is fine or whatever. But we were talking about how recently the laws have been changed in Georgia, that your doctor is required to tell you now if you have high density breast. So if your breast tissue is dense, they're required to tell you that, right? Because that means then that you may need additional screening, or your mammogram needs to be a little bit more intense than someone else's. And I remember being a young woman and talking to my great grandmother about mammograms, and Mary J. Riley, yes. And this was before we were talking about breast cancer openly, right? I knew my family history. I was middle school or high school when we were talking about this. So I knew that my grandmother had experienced it. And she said to me, she described the process of a mammogram. And, you know, from an old lady's perspective, whose breasts are super long, right? She was talking about how they fold it up and put it in the machine and then they smash it like a sandwich and blah, blah, blah. And so it was like this horrific image in my head of it. But then it came back to being a woman and being able to say, you know what, you might need to mash that down a little bit more. Like you need to make sure that you get in there, because I'm a woman, you know, being a woman with higher breast density, being able to say that and being able to know that. So I want to encourage those of you. Oh, there's an alarm in my house. Sonya, you take over.
I agree. Did you got it taken care of?
It looks like we're all safe in here, y'all. But I think that it's important. I love that both of you were very aware of your breast, the makeup of your bodies as you were going into the situation. So you knew that something was different, but then you also kind of knew what sorts of things to be looking out for that may have been different or overlooked previously. So I appreciate both of you for saying that. Let's talk about, we've talked both about your experiences being told. I want to ask you, Sonya, I'll start with you this time. What stage was your cancer the first time and then the second time?
So the first time it was stage 1, the second, or either stage 0. And the second time it was a 1, or no, the second time it was a 2. So, and I couldn't feel anything. So it was absolutely the mammograms that really saved my life.
Okay. All right. Amazing. Mammograms do save lives, y'all. I can't even stress how important they are. Benet, what about you? For your diagnosis, what was your stage by the time you went in?
I was 2B.
2B. Okay, excellent. So for those of you that are listening in, you may be a woman, you may be a spouse, a cousin, whoever, a best friend. It is important that you are aware of the various stages of breast cancer, because the stages that you are at can give an indication of what the prognosis might be for you. So the earlier it's found, the better. Once you start getting over into those 3s and 4s, that's when our eyebrows start looking drawn on and that sort of thing. Because now we're, I don't have an appropriate word for that. We're in the woods by that time as those numbers go up. So wanting to be aware of that. Benet, so you mentioned that by the time your diagnosis happened, that you had already, it was discovered that you already had it in your lymph nodes. Tell us a little bit about kind of what does that mean when you say, okay, it was in my lymph nodes. I get the analogy that you gave, that you kind of looked at yourself and was like, it's all over my body now, right? But what does that really mean?
So yes, so the we have lymph nodes, of course, all over our body. I learned that. I didn't even realize that before my cancer, but but we do. We have them all over our body. But in terms of cancer, when for the cancer to be in your lymph nodes, your cancer is already spreading. It has actually moved from the initial site, which is what we never wanted to do. It has moved from the initial site, and it is going to a different place in your body. So that's like, that's like never good. But yes, that was where I was at. And I think that caused more panic than anything.
Of course. So we're about at the halfway point. Y'all know time flies when we're having fun and alarms are going off. But for those of you that are listening in, please go ahead and begin to gather your questions and drop those in. This is beyond breast cancer. So I want to touch on a couple of different things on the other side of the diagnosis, because we get that the diagnosis happens. It's shocking. It is life-changing. It's all of these these things. I would love to hear, number one, from both of you all, how your families and your friends responded to your diagnoses, and then also what support looked like for you. Sonya, one of the things that Sonya always says on Let's Talk Transition is about your village and your support system and how important that is. So, Benet, I'll start with you again. If you would tell me, what was your family and friends' reaction to your diagnosis? I mean, because a strange nurse called your husband, right, and was like, you need to get here. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that had a very different impact than him being there from the onset. So what was that like?
Well, like I said, we had moved. So I was I was in a brand new area, for me. Luckily, my husband's family is here, so that was helpful. The church was very helpful for us. And I really needed a lot. It was amazing because literally strangers, like for my children, parents just jumped in from the schools, from all of their extracurricular things. And they were like, oh, I'll do pickups, I'll do drop-offs. I mean, it was really amazing. The people that I didn't know that just stepped in and did amazing things. My husband was helping a church, and they provided meals every week that I had to do chemo. They provided literally for the whole week. They would provide meals for the whole week. But it was pretty amazing that people would step in like that. And of course, my sweet old mama, she would come down and be, stay a week or whatever. And she was very, very encouraging. The very first thing, I know we got to rush, but the very first thing she said to me when I called, because I was like that ugly cry, she was like, I'm going to need you to pull yourself together. I mean, just real stern. Hang up this phone, get your cry out, and call me back. She said, wow, because you know that the greatest thing is your mind and your will in this. And I'm going to need you to get that out and call me back.
Yeah. A mother's
Oof, and I'm sure she probably got off the phone and cried herself.
Of course she did. Of course she did.
Her voice.
She was sliding down the wall the whole time, like, get yourself together, girl. Got it. Sonya, what about you? What was the response? Hello, cousin Sherry and Kayla. It's so good to see you, y'all. Kayla, I pause. Flag on the play. Kayla, it's great to see you. Kayla was one of my students many moons ago. She recently joined the Air Force. So it's exciting to be able to connect with her and see her as a young woman. So thank you for joining. That's
sweet. That's sweet. The pastor is on. So hello, Pastor Peterson. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Your wife is doing excellent. I thought maybe you would join her, but I don't see you in the background, so I guess you're not joining her.
He's gonna be doing like this in a minute. You still on there? You finished?
So he would take over. So
that's my friend. So when I was so shocked, I think I drove home in shock. I told my family, I told my sister, and she was like, well, we got this. We're going to do fine. You're going to do fine. And what we need to do, all of my family, because of the history in our family, everybody just was like, on go, what do we need to do? But when I told my Aunt Carolyn, I remember sitting at my old house, sitting in the kitchen in the chair, just crying. And she said, baby, we're going to be all right. We got this. We're going to come down there. And when I had the surgery, my Aunt Carolyn and Tanya and everybody came that Thanksgiving. Child, everybody came to my house. I thought to myself, y'all think I'm dying, don't you?
Yes.
So everybody came. It was fantastic. But my church family, as Benet said, they stepped in when I was getting my radiation the first time around. It was like, you're gonna have to pay a copay every day, and you got 6 weeks of radiation, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, where are we getting that money from? Somebody stepped up and said, sister, we got your radiation. We're gonna pay all of your radiation copays.
Ain't
Then
got
somebody else said, well, we're going to cook. I'm going to cook you a couple of meals. Same thing. Your village is so important.
yeah.
The second time I went, I got Janice went with me to chemo the first time I got it because I was scared, spitless. It was just so important. It's impossible for me to do life by myself. It's because I need those people, somebody that I can call on when I'm having a tough time, or I don't even have to call on them. They know that I'm having a tough time and they just step right on in. That's my village.
Yeah, I think that both of you touched on this idea of that there wasn't a transition period, right? That there wasn't like a big bump or hump to get over. It was seamless integration of the resources and the people that you needed. And I think that speaks to what it means and what it does for us when we voice our truth, when we say and share what's going on with us, because people are there, they're waiting, they are available.
Mm-hmm.
What I have found and observed is people will help if they know that you need help. So then there are moments where we say, okay, this is going on with me. I'm just going to keep it to myself and I'm just going to figure it out. Because like Benet said earlier, I'm a woman and I'm going to get all this together. But the truth of the matter is that there's another woman that's over there that know how to make a casserole for 72 people, that's waiting to use that recipe. I think that is extremely important that you guys touched on. That was the idea that you did notify and share with your families, and that you did share with people that were outside of your nuclear family, but also part of your communities, right? You have to let your job know, you let your church families know, and then people step in and they do the work and things happen. And I think that is where we miss the mark sometimes. Sometimes we become so secretive, and just as a culture, we get to these places where we don't want to share. We say stuff like, that's my business and nobody else's, or I don't want them all in my business, those sorts of things. But when they are in our business, they have the ability to help us. There may be someone that is listening to this live or listening to the replay. I want you to know that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but instead it is a sign of true strength in knowing who you are, what you can do, what you're capable of, and what you have the capacity to handle. So if you are in the shower with your plastic bag and you're rubbing, because they say if you get in the shower with the plastic bag and you feel something, that's not the time to be like, let me keep this to myself. That is absolutely the time to say, all right, I need to get a plan in place, somebody to ride with me to the doctor, or someone that can just listen to me as I rationalize and try to talk my way out of this paper bag, So I want to encourage that. Both of you ladies have experienced some different pathways to your healing. Both of you, I'm sure, have discovered some amazingly incredible things about yourself through this transition, right? From the diagnosis, transitioning through the treatment and onward. So I want to ask you, Sonya, I'll start with you this time. What is one thing that you learned about yourself during this journey that you may or may not have otherwise realized? Sometimes our lives are just such boxes. But what's something you learned about yourself?
I'm stronger than I think. I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. And I'm a survivor. All of the things, when I think about all of the transitions, all of the things that I've been through, that's it. I've been through them. I'm still here.
It's the period part, y'all. Grab your tissue, people. Oh my goodness.
And I'm thankful. I know that it was the hand of the Lord on my life. Through everything that I have been through, the hand of the Lord has kept me. Because I could have easily given in. I could have easily given up. I could have easily taken the road of less resistance. But it's just that God has kept me, and it's almost like He's had His hand in the small of my back, saying, "You got this. Keep going forward. Don't give up."
Okay, great. And Benet, what about you? What's something that you learned about yourself in this journey?
So I wish I could say the same thing as
You can.
No, I can't. wouldn't be my truth.
Okay, well, tell your truth. That's what we really want on here.
That wouldn't be my
Truth and
truth. Yeah.
transparency.
So I learned that I hadn't been living authentically.
Wow.
So it really helped me put life in perspective, and it was an eye opener, because the thought that if I left this world today,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, had I even fulfilled purpose, you know,
Mm.
um, but I found myself just kind of going through the motions, and that yeah, that I had not filled the purpose that
Yeah,
for which
that's
I'm
good.
here.
What a
That's good.
powerful
That's
lesson
good.
in transition, right? Is to discover the a level of inauthenticity, but then to be able to live on and pivot to get to that point, I think
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
incredibly amazing. Um, to back up to that question, what was the most challenging thing for you, Benet, in the entire process? Was it finding resources? Was it the self-talk that was happening? What was the most challenging experience for you in this?
Oh goodness. I can't even think of what was the most challenging. Just well, I guess the idea of my family, just leaving them here, because
Mhm.
I feel like I do everything.
Yeah.
I feel like I do it all. So what, and like what would my kids do? And just
Mhm.
I think that was the biggest challenge for me.
Mhm.
Um, and what the small challenge that I continue with is, will I ever see that cancer
Mhm.
again?
Yeah.
So that just, even being a person of faith, you still just, I mean, you hit your toe, you feel a bump, you like, what?
Right.
Your head, your head hurt, and you like, ooh,
No,
is it all the
right.
rain?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just leaves you with this, just gosh, because
Yes.
yeah, and you meet so many people through this journey,
Yeah.
and year after year, you lose so many people that you've met. So it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
And Sonya, same question. What was the most challenging part?
I think the most challenging part for me was the treatment. It was just so. First of all, when I got the diagnosis, I immediately went in my mind to what my mom went through,
Mhm.
and she had a hell of a time. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I'm even strong enough to endure what she endured. But my journey was not hers.
Yeah.
And technology and medical advancements made it a whole lot different, but it's still the side effects of the chemo, the side effects of
Yes, it
of
is.
the radiation. Oh my god, it was just. And then when I burned, I remember standing in the shower just crying, like, oh my god, I cannot believe this is happening to me. How much longer? It was so. The treatment was just. And my doctors were amazing. All of them were sweet. All of them were nice, but they didn't go home with me. And it was just something that you have to walk through. You can't get around it. You know,
Yeah.
your mouth, the food tasting like metal, and you're not being able to eat. It was just that whole. And the reality is, poison is going into your body.
Or
Mhm.
So
losing your toenails and fingernails.
yes, it was just awful. It was.
Yeah.
There has to be a better way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, that part for me was just both times. It was just awful, awful, awful. Uh,
Okay. So thank you for your truth on that. Burnett hit a really nice thing just now in her I don't know what you call it, her amen. We got 15 more minutes, guys, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on how amazing y'all's questions are. But let's talk woman to woman right now. Okay. Now I'm a young woman. Uh multiple generations of women in my family and on all sides have had experiences with breast cancer and the various treatment forms, from my mother to my aunt to my aunt's aunts to my grandmother. Benet, you mentioned your mother, but you talked about your fingernails and your toenails falling off. Let's talk about just what the diagnosis and recovery is, just on your self-esteem, how you're looking and how you're feeling, right? Because I'm looking at your hair. Both of you have these wonderful heads of hair, but I also remember when neither of you had hair, right? So let's just talk transparently and truthfully. I remember having a conversation with my mom during one of her visits. We were chatting, and she went in the shower, and she comes back out, and she said, "That shit done took everything from me." And I said, "Well, what did it take?" She said, "They tell you that it's gonna come off your hair, but the rest of your body, the hair done fell off too." And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
thank you for that vivid painting of your hairless cat type body. But honestly, what is that journey like? I mean, because we as women, the media is feeding us images of what beauty is, what beauty isn't. We as Black women are not necessarily that standard. We're becoming the standard, but we have not been. What is that journey like? Either one of you.
Okay, I'll go. So, I had shoulder length hair at the time. Or maybe I had the Oprah haircut, I think. But anyway, all of the hair came out. And so my family said I needed to get a wig.
Praise God.
I hated that thing on my head.
But it
The
looks
second time
open.
around, I was already having hot flashes because in between the two times, I had a hysterectomy because they said that estrogen feeds cancer cells, and plus I was having issues with bleeding, blah, blah, blah. So I was having hot flashes, and that wig on my head was driving me batty. So I was like, bump it. I don't care what people think. And I had no hair, right? No hair. My eyebrows have yet to grow back. It's been over 10 years the second time around. I still have a very small eyebrows, but I had to actually talk to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I say, okay, girl, now you got to put it on. You know, but you got to look good. You got to put that lipstick on, put that makeup on, and sometimes I started wearing hair wraps. And I would get all different colors. So I had to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first I was like, I don't care. I don't even care what they think. I'm just, and I remember at somebody's graduation, I think it was Jocelyn's graduation, I had on a black and white sweater, and I had this look. We were eating at 6 feet under, and I had this look on my face like, what? I was just over it. But I had to work at it.
Yeah.
I had to talk to myself regularly.
Benet, what about you?
Yeah, it's crazy because I didn't have any problems with losing my hair. That was just like, I was gonna rock that bald head. I wasn't wearing no wig. I was just gonna rock that bald head because, yeah, I already don't like doing hair, and then having to make sure this wig was right. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do that. But it was crazy though, because it was like having an out of body experience.
Mm-hmm.
And like your mom said, you didn't have to shave, so that was that was good. You didn't have to shave, but just how it affected things. I mean, I felt like I couldn't have a conversation with people because my conversation, it was like delayed. Like I had to work to get out what I was saying and think through what I was saying. That I really hated, because that was just a terrible feeling. Now for me, I didn't lose a whole lot of weight. I lost a little weight in the beginning, but I ended up being on a steroid. And you guys know I came to visit, and I looked like an Oompa Loompa. I mean, it was just, steroids give you that abnormal weight gain look. So it's just like somebody's taking, air and pumped it into you. So I hated, because I thought I looked horrible then, and I
Mhm.
really didn't want to be around people during that time. But yeah, other than that, um, PTSD
Mhm.
It's very real.
has been an issue, and
Mhm.
yeah, so it's
So thank you for that segue on PTSD. For me, as I consider that the families of those who have experienced breast cancer, I count you all as the victors, right? You
Mhm.
are the ones that were on the battlefield that really were doing the work, right? The what do they call them? The generals. You were
Mhm.
doing that, but I also consider the families to be part of that, right? That we
Mhm.
survived, not just you survived, because it
Mhm.
creates a it takes everybody
yeah.
for the journey.
Mhm.
And you mentioned the PTSD piece of it. Although I've never experienced breast cancer, because of my experiences with it, there is some trauma that is there. There
Mhm.
is some PTSD that I have experienced, and it wasn't me, right? Um, so when Sonya mentioned this idea of getting into the shower, you saw me like, oh, right? Because this one particular night, I'm never going to forget this night. Well, I will forget it. One of these days, I'm going to forget it or either write about it in a book and be over it. But her incision burst.
Mhm.
And it was her incision burst and blood sprayed all over like a horror movie at home. And it was in that bathroom where she was crying in the shower and all that. And I promise, because I have such a vivid imagination, that I heard the horror movie music. It was going as the blood was doing like this, and she's screaming for us to, come and get some towels and everybody help. And it was my mom, I think, was screaming because she was like, "Nani, Nani, Nani!" Like, what are you? And she was going, "What?" And every corner she turned to, the blood was just,
Wow.
and I was like, "Oh gosh," right? And I remember having seen that. That was the first time. So it was before my mom had been diagnosed. It was after my grandmother had passed, and I remember thinking to myself, I must have been, I don't know how old I was, but I remember thinking, I'm going to have me a double mastectomy. I'm not even going to go through this. Y'all ain't got to worry about me
Right, right.
going there. And I said, I'm going to, and this is that PTSD talking, I'm going to find a man that don't need me to have no boobies, right? I ain't having no babies because I ain't going to have no boobies to nurse them, because I'm going to be like, as soon as I turn 21, 22, I'm cutting them off, and I'm going to live this. And then when my mom was diagnosed, and then auntie again, that same year that my mom died, I was like, I know y'all shitting me. We got to do this. And I just remember being like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do this. I had conversations with my doctors, my primary care, my OBGYN. And I said, I think I need to do this. I want to go ahead and just take away the possibility. I had conversations with my therapist where I said, all right, here's the deal. When I get to my late 30s, I'm going to need to wrap up everything that I think is important and everything that I think that I'm called to, because based on my family experience at 40, my life is going to change.
Mm.
Mm, mm, mm.
Like, I remember being scared of the clock ticking to 36. Like, whoo, that's going to make me in my late 30s. That means I'm only going to have this much time to work or to get things accomplished. So I would love to hear from you ladies. Now that you are on the other side, you have transitioned through, you have made it over. Come on,
Praise
somebody.
God. Come
I'm
on.
I responded, huh?
Come on, preacher.
I know, but I would love to hear from you. What has been the joy on the other side of the journey? What have been some of the things that you have experienced or accomplished that you're like, man, if I hadn't made it, this would never be, or I could never see myself here. And then what is it like to continue to dream? Right? Because I recognize that there's probably a stagnation of dreaming that comes, just like you said, Benet, like you bump your toe, you be like, oh, wait a minute now. So
Right.
what are the joys, the accomplishments, the experiences, either one of you?
Go.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go.
Um, well, just I know that I'm living now. Well, I'm living real good, even in the midst of this pandemic.
Mhm.
I'm probably a whole lot happier, a whole lot, um, yeah. I'm just every day is important.
Mhm.
Every day is important,
Mhm.
and I try to live in that day. I try to live in that day and get the best out of that day. Um, so that's been big. Um, plan, setting goals for things that I need to do. Like even this year, I started some things that I have literally put off for years.
Mm.
And I was just so proud of myself. Like, you got to do this. You got
Yeah.
to quit putting it
Mhm.
off. You
Mhm.
need to take care of this. So
Yeah.
it helped with that. It
Okay,
helped.
let me ask you this. Do you feel like, oh, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Sorry about that. Do you feel as though now you are living authentically?
I am on the road to living
Okay,
authentically. I'm
good.
on the road to living authentically. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Sonya,
Yeah.
what about you?
So it has been, I wouldn't wish it on anybody that I know. My worst enemy,
Of
the
course not.
person that talks about me like a dog, I wouldn't wish it on them.
Right.
But it has opened my eyes to, as Benet said, living. It has opened my eyes to the possibilities of what I can do. I thought all of my life I just wanted to be a background singer. I want to stay in the background. I don't want to go. I have it has propelled me into speaking about breast cancer, about being an advocate for people. I wrote a book about transition. So it really propelled me, I think, into where God really wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And now I'm able to help other people to live whole. I mean,
Mhm.
I know that we say that we want to go to heaven, but we're not in heaven yet. So, but I do believe that God wants us to live an abundant life here. He
Yeah.
wants us not only saved in our spirit and our souls, but He wants us whole in our bodies, in our
Mhm.
thinking, in our pocketbooks. So I enjoy helping people just be whole all over,
Yeah.
in their entire being. And he's given me a platform and an opportunity to speak life into so many people. So it I don't ever want it again.
Praise
Mhm.
Trust
God.
me,
We're
I
not,
don't
we're
ever
not going down that road.
never want it
Never.
again. And we cast down those thoughts and
Yeah.
imaginations that you've been
Yeah.
having in Jesus' name, because we ain't
Oh,
into
those
that
are gone. I have
party.
a long life. I got things to
Yeah.
do. I don't have time for this.
Okay, so but it's just been amazing. And every now and then the enemy will try to come in and say,
Sure.
like Burnett said, oh, you got a pain there. I wonder if that
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Right.
live it to the end, my last breath.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna still be living my life the best, living my life like it's golden.
Living
Yeah.
my life like
Yeah.
it's golden, golden. Oh, we should have had some theme music. All
Uh-huh.
right. So I have two final questions. Okay. Um, and those of you, this is your last opportunity. Hey Mo, welcome back to the A. We're so excited to have you back. I can't wait to see you when outside opens again. I heard that AMC is offering $99. You can rent the whole theater. Tell me if that's true or not. Okay, because we might have a survivor meetup party or something where we can just, do this.
Okay now.
Okay, because you can rent the whole movie theater. I don't think she's at AMC, but she still got those connections. I know people in high places. All
Come
right,
on.
questions. Here we go. Um, if I'm a person who is a friend or a family member of someone that is experiencing breast cancer, what is one thing that I can do to help or support you on the journey if you have been or after a diagnosis?
Be there.
Okay.
Put the phone down and be there.
Uh-oh. I
Can't
can't
hear you.
hear it. Say it again, Bennett.
I said, "Oh, it's my child trying to call me, Lord."
Oh,
We busy. We busy.
I know. um, I feel like it just depends on the individual
Okay.
because the journey looks different for every single
Yeah.
person. People want to, I mean, it's kind of like being pregnant and everybody want to tell you how to go through that and how that is and you should do this and do that. It was kind of the same way. And it
Mm-hmm.
helped me to even learn how I approached offering myself to other people
Mm-hmm.
in certain situations
Mhm.
because um, Sonya talked about going to treatments and people going with her to treatment. I didn't really want anybody to go with me to treatment
Wow.
because um, oftentimes that was my place to really, if I had some tears that were going to drop, it was there. I didn't want to do it
Mm-hmm.
around my children and or really, really thinking things through. And I didn't want. Now my husband went with me every treatment, but
Mm-hmm.
he didn't have to sit there. He could be, he busy anyway. He could be doing whatever on the phone, doing whatever he was doing, whatever. But yeah, and people would ask. I was like, no, no, I'm good. So just let them tell you what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So be there and let them tell you, hey, Tracy, hey, y'all, our cousin Tracy is on here, our sister cousin Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
Okay, so this is my last question because I don't see any in the chat right now. My last question to you both. This is my Oprah question, so I'm about to sit
Uh-oh.
up and ask it right. Finish this statement. This I know for sure.
Hmm.
This is a Super Soul Sunday question I've been practicing.
Mhm. This I know for sure. God does all things well. I began to
Oh,
declare that through my journey. And anytime my mind just shifts to able to say that and just watch it change so many things. Because he
Amen.
does all things well, even when we don't feel like it. Even when
mm-hmm.
we don't believe,
Come
it's
on.
looking real crazy. He does all things well. And it's
Drink Peterson and Sonya. This I know for sure.
This I know for sure. Um, that I'm loved.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
That's good.
I'm loved by the Father. I
Mhm.
am loved by my community. Um, I'm loved even when I was working at that particular job and going through it. They loved me. They took care of me. Um, um, so yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to thank both of you for your openness and your transparency tonight. For those of you that are catching the replay, again, we have Benet Peterson and Sonya T. Cruel. Both of them are champions of breast cancer. They are on this other side of the journey. We appreciate both of you so much. We value you before this and after this.
Mm,
Think that tonight's conversation has been informative just from the perspective of two people can have similar or shared experiences that are completely different. We've seen different ways that we can show up for you. We've heard different ways that a cancer diagnosis can impact not only just us, but our entire families, as well as our communities. So thank you all both so much for that. I would be remiss if I did not thank you, Sonya, for letting me tag along for today's conversation. And everybody that's watching this in the next 20 days, y'all know I'm on one. We've got to, I gotta stand up. Gotta vote. Vote. It's so important because Benet talked about earlier in the call that the resources that were made available to her
Yeah.
being diagnosed and uninsured, but she still got the treatment that she needed. She
mm,
still got everything taken care of. And beyond that, right? There were not major sacrifices that had to be made. Her children were able to stay in their extracurricular activities, remain with their peers because of resources that were available. It wasn't, something else that happened. So for those of you that can vote, that you're 18 or older, do it. Use your voice, because those resources are funded by those who we put in place, who we elect, not just for, oh, that's him.
No, I just wanted to say something about that real quick. And
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to use the resources. Do not be afraid
Yes.
to use the resources.
Get your pride out the way.
Out the way.
Get your pride out the way. Fill out the application. Make the phone call. Stay on hold while they transfer you a couple, 2-3 times.
Yes.
Get the help. Accept the resources. Ain't no need in being sick and poor and downtrodden and
Right.
when it can all be changed by opening your mouth and saying, hey, I need help, or I could use your help. So yes, let's use those resources while they are available. Let's vote for those that can make those resources remain available to us. So thank you, everyone. This has been Let's Talk Transition. I have been your guest host, Danielle Butler, in for Sonya T, the transition coach. You can follow her on all platforms as at STC Riley. Her website is tanyatcruel.com. Her hashtag is hashtag the transition coach. But anyway, you can find her. Benet, how can we connect with you? Because it sounds like great things are happening in your world, and we want to be a part of that.
Yes. So look for Blossom with B coming forward this year. So I'll be actually relaunching that, and it's just sharing with women, getting them to live authentically. We want them to breathe, believe, and then blossom.
Yes, amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, thank you all so very much. We will talk with you next week. As I mentioned, October is a month of all the ribbons. We got a ribbon for everything. Purple ones, pink ones. Oh, yeah, my timer just went off. Y'all saw my eyes go to the side. But next week, we are going to talk about the loss of a child from our next week guest. So thank you so much, and I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
All righty. I see the kids coming in.
Get us off live then. Stop broadcast.
Okay, goodbye. Good night, y'all.
Good night.